The Hamilton-Rosberg rivalry was one of the most exciting battles of the 2010s. The Silver Arrows War saw both drivers fight for the championship 3 seasons in a row, with action both on and off the track. The rivalry ended just after the 2016 season, when Nico Rosberg announced that he would retire from Formula One with immediate effect, 5 days after winning the World Championship. This rivalry has remained hotly debated, with fans of both drivers arguing over who deserved the World Championships, with a particular focus on the bad luck of both drivers, with Mercedes suffering from a lot of reliability issues during this time. This has led to me to start a new series, where I go through F1 seasons and see who would have won the championships if it wasn't for the title contenders suffering from bad luck. How this video will work is that I will look at all the races, find the ones where Hamilton and Rosberg had bad luck, and try to see where they would have finished had it not been for the bad luck. So if a driver retires out of first place with a mechanical problem, then I will change the results to give them first place. Of course, this is not always clear, and it can be very debatable as to which driver would have finished ahead out of these two. For example, the first bad luck-affected race in 2014 was the season opener in Australia. Lewis Hamilton retired early on due to engine problems. This affected Hamilton immediately at the start, and therefore, it is difficult to predict how Hamilton would have done during this race without the bad luck. So I will give both drivers 21.5 points for this race. The next bad luck-affected race would be the Canadian Grand Prix, where after a great battle for first, both drivers suffered from MGU failures. Hamilton retired due to brake failure while Rosberg lost the lead to Daniel Ricciardo in the final few laps of the race. Mercedes would almost definitely have scored another 1-2 finish without the reliability issues, although it is difficult to know which driver would have won. Next is the British Grand Prix, where Rosberg retired out of the lead with gearbox failure. The German had a massive lead, so I will give him the win here. Next we have 2 races where Hamilton had bad luck during qualifying. At Hockenheim, Lewis had brake failure at the start of Q2. He would almost definitely have started on the front row without this incident. And in Hungary, Hamilton's car caught fire and had to start from the pit lane. Again, the Brit would almost definitely have started on the front row, but given how good Hamilton's wet weather skills are and how much Rosberg struggled in this race, I think Lewis would have comfortably won the Hungarian Grand Prix instead of Daniel Ricciardo, with Rosberg still finishing 4th. At the Belgian Grand Prix, the inevitable happened. The 2 Mercedes drivers collided while battling for first, leading to Hamilton getting a puncture. Rosberg took full blame for this incident, and if Hamilton didn't get a puncture from this contact, I imagine that he would win the race. Rosberg had his own bad luck a few laps later when a net got stuck to his car. This almost definitely stopped the German from finishing ahead of Ricciardo. The next race with bad luck was the Singapore Grand Prix, where Rosberg had steering wheel and computer issues on his car, practically ending his race before it even began. There would probably be a Mercedes one too. Finally, we have the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where Rosberg had a loss of power during the race, dropping him to 14th in the end. Hamilton was clearly quicker, so I think Rosberg would definitely finish 2nd. Now let's look at the new results. It seems that both drivers lost roughly the same amount of points due to their bad luck. Interestingly though, Mercedes would now win every race with a 1-2 finish at all races, with the exception of the Hungarian Grand Prix, where Rosberg struggled in the rain. Moving on to 2015 now, where the first bad luck-affected race was the Bahrain Grand Prix, where towards the end of the race, both cars suffered similar problems to the ones they suffered at the Canadian Grand Prix the year prior. Hamilton was able to retain the lead, but Rosberg lost 2nd to Kimi. The German would have finished 2nd without this issue. The Monaco Grand Prix saw the first ever use of a virtual safety car after Max Verstappen crashed out of the race. Hamilton was called into the pits by his team with the expectation of the Brit retaining the lead. However, Mercedes had made a miscalculation and rejoined the race in 3rd. Hamilton would almost definitely have won without this bad luck. The Italian Grand Prix saw Nico Rosberg have engine failure while hunting down Vettel for 2nd. It's debatable whether Rosberg would have gotten past his fellow countrymen, but I will be generous and say he would have overtaken Vettel. At the following race in Singapore, Lewis Hamilton retired out of 4th place with power unit problems. Finally, at the Russian Grand Prix, Nico Rosberg retired from the race early on due to a throttle issue. Rosberg seemed quicker in qualifying, so I will give him the win. So here are the new results. Once again, Hamilton still wins the World Championship, and both drivers win the same number of races. Sebastian Vettel would still keep all of his wins though, unlike Daniel Ricciardo the year prior. Finally, we have the 2016 F1 season. The grand finale of the Silver Arrows battle. Lewis Hamilton was the first to run into bad luck at the Bahrain Grand Prix. He was hit by future teammate Valtteri Bottas at turn 1. This damaged the Brit's car, leading to him finishing behind Kimi. He would have finished at least second without this incident. Hamilton gets struck by bad luck at the next 2 races as well, with his car failing to start in Q1 in China, and then failing to leave the pits in Q3 in Russia, both due to mechanical problems. The Brit would have started on the front row for both of these races, but like in Bahrain, it's impossible to know whether he would have beaten Rosberg. The next one is a bit more controversial. At the Spanish Grand Prix, both drivers collided on lap 1, ending their races immediately. There has been endless debate as to whether it was a racing incident or if either driver was at fault, but I will be generous and say that both drivers were unlucky in this incident, and would have gotten a 1-2 for Mercedes without this collision. Moving on to Baku now, which was run under the European Grand Prix name this season. Hamilton's crash in qualifying was a driver error, so I won't correct that. However, Hamilton did have an engine mapping problem during the race. There was a rule in place during this time limiting how much information the team was allowed to give the driver over the radio, so Hamilton had to spend a large part of the race running on less power. I think he would have easily finished second without this incident. A similar problem affected Nico Rosberg at the British Grand Prix, where his gearbox stopped working. However, the team decided to break the rules and give the German the information he needed over the team radio, which kept Rosberg in the race, but he was given a 5-second penalty after the race, dropping him behind Max Verstappen. Nico would easily have finished second without this incident. At the Austrian Grand Prix, Rosberg had a 5-place grid penalty due to a gearbox change. The German would make an excellent recovery during the race, even leading up until the final lap, until Rosberg screwed up at turn 3 and broke his front wing, dropping him to 4th. This incident was definitely Rosberg's fault. However, if the gearbox change never happened, then this incident would never have happened, due to Rosberg starting on the front row and now being on the same strategy as his teammate, meaning that Rosberg would finish at least second. Hamilton would also receive grid penalties later in 2016 at the Belgian Grand Prix, forcing the Brit to start from the back of the grid. Hamilton would finish at least second without these penalties. 2 races later, Lewis Hamilton would have a weekend to forget in Singapore, with the Brit suffering multiple mechanical problems throughout the weekend. I imagine that Hamilton would finish at least second without these problems. Finally, we have the Malaysian Grand Prix. Rosberg was spun around by Vettel at turn 1, forcing the Mercedes driver to spend the rest of the race recovering from the back of the grid. Then, on lap 40, Lewis Hamilton's engine blew up in spectacular fashion down the start-finish straight, losing an easy win. It would have been a Mercedes 1-2 without these incidents. Looking at the results now, it seems that Lewis Hamilton would now win the World Championship in 2016. Even if we were to go for the best-case scenario for Nico Rosberg, it seems that Brit would still come out on top. This is not to say that Nico Rosberg doesn't deserve his World Championship, far from it. He did an excellent job, but it just goes to show how much bad luck can affect the outcome of a championship and change the way we perceive drivers. Had Hamilton won this championship, he could now be an 8-time world champion, putting him 1 ahead of Schumacher. And if Rosberg lost the championship in 2016, maybe we would see him in a similar light to Valtteri Bottas, as one of the teammates that couldn't beat Lewis Hamilton. It's also interesting to look at what Mercedes could have achieved. They could have won every single race in 2014 and 2016 and won 56 out of 59 races during this time period. So what do you think about these new results? Do you disagree with any? And what other seasons would you like to see me try to correct the bad luck of? Let me know in the comments section down below, and I will see you next time.